Hey, what's up, guys? This is Travis with his Post-GBT14 legs deck profile. Take it away, dog.
Oh yeah, fucking legs. You know it was right.
Oh yeah, man.
This deck's really strong, and yeah, this deck really took Genesis. This deck really took not only Regalia. This set really not only took Regalia, but Genesis right out of the gutter. This deck's really strong.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people didn't really expect like the Regalia sport to be that good.
I didn't even think it would be that
like,
good.
And even then, on paper, the cards don't all look that good, but together, like, deck's broken.
It just synergizes so well together. Starter is Daylight Angel. It's literally your only option to play, but it's a really good option. It's early game, which avoids control. You counterblast one, shove her in the soul. You look at top three, put a card from among them into the soul. If you put a Regalia, you draw a card. Spoiler: I play all Regalia, so I'm always drawing a card. This card's really strong, specifically if you hit anything with a Soul Blast effect, and I can show you more about that in a minute. But sometimes you can just sack into the Achilles and make your Verdant turns a lot better. But I'll explain that in a little bit. Yeah. So this card is just really strong in general.
Long story short, there's a lot of good targets.
Oh yes.
And you draw a card. You always draw a card.
Always. Another thing that's good for is putting a unit in your drop zone for this card. So this is a really strong stride break.
Is it your stride break? Yeah.
Yep.
Angelica.
She even shares the same name, so you can play Minerva if you wanted to.
Ooh.
I tried it out. I didn't really like it.
It's a cross ride.
soon everything's a cross ride, but I digress. So her first skill is when you ride her, you choose a normal unit drop zone to put it in the soul and draw a card. Unfortunately, it has to be a normal unit, but that's fine. That's just really strong because it's on ride draw a card. It's so free. And when you stride, you counterblast one. It has to be a Regalia unit. Counterblast one. Look at the top four. You put one in your hand, one in the soul, two in the drop. So it's filtered soul charging and drawing. The other cards go in the drop zone, which is also can be good because you want to fill up your drop zone with normal units to put them back in the deck to draw more cards with other cards in your deck. And we'll talk about them later. I'm sure you probably already know them.
Wow, it seems like all these cards work together really well.
Oh, it's crazy.
Synergy.
Slightly less used, but equally as powerful. Verdant player at 3.
It's the old stride break.
Yes. Usually don't use her for her stride break, but her axe skill. She's really strong if you go first. So typically what I do with this deck every game is if I go second, I'm just gonna stay with Angelica, but if I go first, I try to make sure I get Verdant so I can ride her and use her skill. Her skill is Soul Blast 3 cards with the Regalia. They have to be Regalia. Your front row Regalias get, if they hit, you look at the top 2 cards of your deck, put one in the hand and one in the soul. So what you want to do with this is you ride her, call full board, and potentially draw up to 3 cards, maybe even 4 if you get a stand trigger. I've done this multiple times to people, and it can just completely win you the game outright by refunding your cost. This card also sets up Scold on turn 3 to get another free draw, so potentially 4 to 5 draws on your grade 3 turn with a full board. And then you follow it up by riding Angelica, and you basically get 2 more free soul that paid for her cost.
And then your on-ride draws you a card, so you just immediately replace the card you spent riding.
Exactly, and it gets you all the cards you need to set up your board. It's really strong. I like this grade 3 count a lot. I've tried multiple ones. One that people typically go to a lot is Ioun. It's the grade 3 that says when you pitch her to stride, you put her in the soul to give your Vanguard 10k. It's strong, but I find it to be quite overkill, and I find this card way more powerful in what she does. I really didn't find Ioun was really helping me win any games. Most of the time when I was using her, either my opponent was no guarding anyway, or it was just overkill at that point. It's really not a big deal. I personally don't like her, and you never want to ride her anyway, so I played her for a while, but I didn't really like
compared to what Verthani does for the deck, it seems like that option is a lot stronger.
Yeah, and also her stride break skill is also potentially useful, actually, because there's lots of cards that can put cards in your soul, so you can potentially give your front row a nice 5k bonus, which isn't a lot, but it's a lot better than nothing.
Yeah.
And on Earth turns, you have to have the perfect setup, but it can potentially be really strong there too. Anyway, going on to the grade 2s, 2 cards that basically do kind of in the same vein. Frasia and Bragi. So basically, she does what she does for free, but she draws a card. So her skill is on place. You counterblast 1 to draw a card and put 2 cards in your drop zone into your soul. Now this is not GB restricted, so you can do this turn 3, and this is amazing in combination with Ferdinandi by using Daylight Angel on your second turn, and then writing Ferdinandi, and then calling her, putting the cards that you put in the drop zone for Daylight Angel into your soul, or potentially just putting the cards that Ferdinandi Soul Blast back in the soul if you have to. This card sets up greatly because it draws you a card to give you another attacker potentially, and just to give you more free cards. And later in the game, you put back combo pieces that give you more power and also your PG to recycle more. This card does the same thing. Oh, and she's like a mini Nahalem also. So when your Vanguard attacks, she gets 3k.
Oh, it's not once per turn?
Nope. So
nice.
she gets 6. So she can actually make a 22 roll on the second Minerva swing. But she gets 6k for the whole turn, which is significantly better. And she also gives the power to your Vanguard, which is really, really nice. So they basically do the same thing. They're pretty much the primary soul chargers of the deck, actually. And this is the card you want to recycle. You will recycle this card a lot to make sure you always have everything you need in your soul to keep going. A card that you will be putting in your soul a lot and powering up your board is Genel. She's not particularly strong, but the amount of times you can abuse her is actually really strong. Her first skill is kind of irrelevant. You don't use it very often. When she attacks, you can let her get 2k, but if you do, you have to put her in your soul. So usually don't use this unless you're fighting against control decks and you just want to dodge removal, but even then, usually would rather just die and then G-Guard and put it in your soul anyway. So it's kind of just depends on the game state, but usually you won't be using that skill unless you're really pushing for game and it breaks the stage. But other skills is what's important, is when you Soul Blaster, you can choose one of your Regalias and give it 3k, which is actually really strong, especially when you combo multiples. Usually you can fix the numbers to where 1 3k breaks a stage, and then you can make both columns break a stage, but you will usually try to get multiple in your soul and abuse them by using Minerva's main phase Soul Blast and then the battle phase Soul Blast to keep giving yourself more power. The Grade 2 line is really simple. It's nothing too extreme. You've kind of got like your consistency card, your kind of more power card, and your engine card kind of. But they all work really efficiently. They don't really seem strong on their own, but they really work well with what the deck wants to do.
Yeah, they really kind of seem like I was saying before, like just the nature of this deck. Like none of these cards are particularly strong on their own, but they all just kind of like they all synergize so well and just prop up Minerva so well.
Very much so. That's really the whole goal of the deck, is to make Minerva as good as possible because she's just such an incredible stride. A really powerful PG that this deck got, and I really wish this card was generic and somehow so we could play another Genesis decks. But,
like Fenrir.
Oh yeah. Oh my. So Jotun's really, really good. She only guards Regalias, but she can also guard for rear guards, which is really good against stuff like Laurel. But her other skill is really powerful. So when she's Soul Blasted, you can bind a copy of her in the drop zone to put in your hand. So this card has so many ways to go into your soul to Soul Blast it and recycle it. So with the amount of draw power this deck has, it's really not too far-fetched to have the ability to PG up to 7 times in one game, which is incredibly... I think that at your disposal is incredibly strong because you can always pick up a PG every turn, no matter what.
You can just constantly shove them from your drop zone to soul. So once you get 2 in there, you just loop them.
Yeah, and you just, you guard with 1, pitch 1, add it back. You eventually see the other one, guard, put in your soul, banish, pitch, and you do that with the other one. It's it's really, really strong and gives you constant defense, which this deck already has.
To get it going, you only really, by hand, you only actually need to see 1, as long as you just soul charge 1.
Yeah, and
that's really strong. So a lot of those PGs that interact with 2 copies can be kind of slow because you have to get both of them to really start setting up.
Especially when you consider the stride skill of Angelica plus the starter, you see 7 cards early game that you're going to be potentially milling.
Yeah,
it's really easy to set this up.
And
already.
then by your first strides, soul charging done, you're through a lot of cards.
Yeah. Well, when you really think about it, this deck's actually really strong in one sense is that its soul charging is super controlled. There's no random soul charging.
Yeah.
So you always see what you're soul charging and what you're putting in the grave. So unfortunately, none of it can be put back in the deck if it's like a trigger, but that's fine as long as you really pay attention to what you're doing. Because sometimes you actually don't use Angelica's Stride skill because you're running low on triggers, and you just don't want to have that chance of removing a bunch of triggers from your deck when your Minerva turn could just have all these triggers and you might have thrown them all away.
Yeah.
And that's something I actually consider a lot when my deck's getting really low and I count my triggers to make sure that that doesn't happen. And it has won me a lot of games in that. It just pays to pay attention. Definitely the most powerful grade 1 in this entire deck is Expel Angel. This card is insane. So she says you can put 3 normal units that have different names. When you drops them to the bottom of the deck, and if you have a Vanguard with Regalia, she gets 3k, but if you have a face-up Regalia card in your G zone, you draw a card. So all your strides, anything you're gonna stride, first stride flips up or can flip up a Regalia. So you're always gonna be using this on your first stride, and it's just really strong because this is an axe skill. Every turn, you can have a back row of these and draw 3 cards every turn for no reason, and keep putting cards back in your deck so you don't deck out.
Yeah, I'm not seeing any downside to this card here.
Oh,
I'm seeing 3 pluses.
It's absolutely insane.
Is there a cost somewhere?
The cost is a plus, if anything, to you.
We Gance a lot now, boys.
Absolutely. And in the same vein, we basically play 6. We play 2 Skull. She's kind of like her, but slightly worse. She activates during the end phase. You have to Soul Blast it at least 3 cards that turn. And if you do, you draw a card and Soul Charge 1.
With the same cost of putting 3 normal units back.
The good thing about her is they don't have to have different names, though, which can be convenient if you just got to pay attention to what you're doing. But having these is really strong because it's really easy to find games where these are the only grade 1s you want to boost with anyway. So just having back rows of these just sets you up for the win.
Oh, bless you, dog.
Oh, thank you, dog.
Oh, no problem, dog.
Oh, and an important dog is the Stride Fodder. Regalia got a...
It's not a dog.
Card.
That's a girl. It's a girl, Travis.
Oh, I'll show you the dog.
Fucking misogynist.
This bitch right here, she's just a Stride Fodder. Surprisingly, Regalia got a word-for-word Stride Fodder, just like Battle Sisters did. And it's definitely welcome, because if you're going second, you don't want to ride Verdandi, you always want to see Angelica.
Yeah, so you can just search her.
There.
Yeah, it's really strong.
Yeah.
Makes playing Verthani even better in this deck. Yeah.
Because it's filterable, and just having Stride Fodders in general is obviously good. And the fact that you don't have to break the, xenophobia of this deck to play like the Fenrir Stride Fodder, so you have Stride Fodders in your deck is really, really nice.
Yeah, we should. Took care of you there.
Took care of the wives. For the triggers, we play 4 heals, the good one.
Yeah, standard U effect heal.
Yeah, she's really good in this deck because this deck eats through Counterblast, and you really have to manage your Counterblast because this is the only form of counter charge in this whole deck. It's between healing and using their skills. So if you're smart, you only use like 1 Counterblast every turn anyway, 1 or 2, but you always want to be on the lookout. And we don't play, I actually don't play Dreaming Dragon in this deck, so I don't care about banishing the heals. So it's fine to use them and not worry about putting them back in the deck. But the counter charge is always going to be good. I play 8 crit, only Regalia crits. This card is extremely good. It's basically a Psychic Bird that gives one of your rear guards 3k. It's really strong to help you break numbers and just get you to soul numbers that you need, because this deck actually doesn't have an extreme amount of soul charging like the Fenrir Wiseman deck does that soul charges its whole deck. You don't soul charge that much actually, and considering Minerva on an optimal turn needs 9 cards in the Soul to Soul Blast, just having
that helps out a lot.
Yeah, anything you can get helps. And one of the most powerful cards in the deck actually is Achilles. Now one thing you'll probably notice is that I'm not playing 12 crit, specifically because I can't play a 3rd Regalia crit, because there isn't another 3rd Regalia crit, and you really don't want to break the xenophobia of this deck, because a lot of these cards require Regalia to use their effects, and Minerva can only Soul Blast Regalias. Earth only picks up Regalias from the drop zone. It's just there's not really any way to soul blast them once you get them in your soul. So the extra crits can come in handy, and I will admit I have had a couple games where I would have won a lot. I would have technically won quicker if these would have just been crits, you know. But that's just kind of the nature of the game. But this card definitely makes up for it in its skill. When you soul blast it, you give your Vanguard 5k. This is really useful if you hit it with this on your Verdani turn to make her 16, to make it to where your opponent with a 10k shield can only one pass it, and let's be real, who's going to do that?
Yeah, that's really strong.
And
this was before the land of GB.
Yeah, and then also it's a sand trigger, so since her skill is not once per turn, on the cards that get the skill aren't once per turn. If you get a stand trigger, you have another chance to use the skill again. And I have definitely had games where I hit one stand and drew 4 cards.
Yeah.
It's incredibly strong in filters and just speeds up the deck a ton.
It seems like anytime you're not trying Minerva, like I guess your first stride, the stands can seem okay because you have a lot of things that gain a lot of power.
Wait, you're asking if I stride Minerva first?
You know, I'm saying like when you're not striding Minerva, like probably on your first stride, you know, you could get a lot of value out of stands because a lot of you just gain power.
Yeah, and all of them will be gaining power, and they'll be very strong. So the stands definitely get power. Although on the first stride, you usually don't push very hard with this deck. You don't call anything early because all the cards have on place skills, so you're usually not calling things very quickly. But in the late game, it can be strong, and also on your first stride, you will be powering up, so it can also have effects there. But the power from this usually just puts it over the edge because, I guess, especially against decks that don't have recycling PGs, this power bonus on Minerva turns or anything really will just make it to where even G guards can't block it by themselves. They'll have to pour out multiple cards on top of their G guard on a restanding Minerva. Usually, once you get to that point, the game's pretty much over.
I mean, once she starts hitting like 40 and 50 and shit, it's like, you know, you can't really like that's just really real numbers. It's like gallop numbers.
Yeah, especially when you consider that all of your rear guards are also hitting for relevant numbers, but we can talk about that in a minute. Always the first stride in this deck is this card. So her skill is you choose any face down card in your G-Zone, turn face up. You soul blast any number of cards. For each card you soul blast, you choose a rear guard and it gets 4k. If you soul blasted 3 or more, you either draw a card or countercharge 1. Unfortunately, you don't get both, but it's fine. Usually you're always drawing a card. Although sometimes you will countercharge if you have to, because you could countercharge with this and then spend the counterblast on this, so you get more soul instead of just drawing a card, which is really good. But one thing that I've always had a pet peeve of when I watch people play this deck is they'll stride Minerva first just to get quad drive instead of doing this to get power and drawing a card while saving a Minerva use.
Bonus some drive check. Even get some triggers.
No, that just always aggravated me. This will always be your first stride, and the fact that this flips up, this card could be any other Regalia card that you flip up.
You can play the old one.
Yeah, you could play the old one, but you just really need to flip up Regalia to make sure Expel Angel can be used first stride.
Yeah, the little green one.
Yeah.
Draws a card if you got a face up one in G-Zone.
But yeah, spoiling the surprise. One of the honestly, in my opinion, one of the strongest strides in this entire format is this card right here. This card is absolutely insane. It's favorite champ on crack. Her skill is, well, once per turn you soul blast 3 Regalias, and you flip up a copy of her. She gets quad drive and 10k power, which is really strong. In tandem with her second skill, which is soul blast 6 Regalias, and on her attack declaration, you soul blast 6 Regalias, JV3, and she gets the skill that after the battle you stand all of your units, and she gets drive -3. So if you use her quad drive effect, she'll have 1 drive check after the fact, so it'll be 4 then 1. And if you don't use her quad drive, it'll be 3 then 0. Which can happen. You actually will have times where you won't have enough soul, so you'll just use her for the restand instead of the quad drive. And that can be effective too, just so you have, because typically you usually do stride like this, then this, but sometimes you may end up doing this, and if you don't have enough soul, this, then this, if it comes to that. But having more uses is never bad. And oh, and I forgot to say, you do discard a card to restand all of your units, but what kind of cost is that really?
Favorite champ cost.
But as you've probably noticed, all of her costs are Regalia, and it costs a total of 9. And that's why, in my opinion, it's definitely not worth it to play anything that's not a Regalia.
Yeah.
Just because you don't want to have that risk of soul charging anything that's.
It's not like you don't need the extra crits that badly. You don't need Dreamy Dragons, but all your stuff that puts back to the deck.
Yeah, I mean, Dreamy Dragon can have use, but I just don't find it's really worth it to break. But if I had to choose, I would definitely play Dreamy Dragon before I'd play more crits.
Yeah.
Just because he's really strong. He's actually really strong in tandem with this card right here. Earth, I don't typically Strider at all, and honestly, you could get away with. You really don't need 4. But
just for the style.
She usually ends up 2 of her usually end up being Jesus fodder, but can be really strong. So her skill is on place, you Crown Blast 1 and flip a copy of yourself. You put all of the Regalias in your drop zone in her soul, and if you have 2 or more face cards Regalia in your G zone, she gets the skill to Soul Blast 6 to get 10k and a crit. So considering you just put your entire drop zone in your soul, you'll be able to use this skill multiple times. One thing you can do with Dreaming Dragon actually, if you do play him, is she has a really strong play you can do where you would go into Minerva, or you may not have had the resources to go into Minerva. Usually, this is saying after you've done it once and you don't have the resources to do it again, you go into her and pick up a lot of your soul, and you soul blast enough to where it's a threat to where your opponent has to guard it for a lot. But one thing you can do is try to turbo soul charge her as much as you can and put all the normal units in her soul and soul blast all the triggers. And use Dreaming Dragon to refill your deck with all the triggers. So when you strike Minerva, you're gonna hit 5 triggers.
Yeah,
that's a real play you can do, and it can be really strong. The only real downside is that you have to waste a turn on setup. But if you needed to set up anyway,
you have to be playing Dreaming Dragons too.
Yeah. But it can be worth it, and sometimes you can just go for the kill shot with this card in a way that maybe Minerva might not have been able to. I'm not sure. 100,000 attack can be really strong and just win you the game, especially against stuff like Link Joker. It's also a time where you use this card because your base opponent just always has to have a PG in their hand or they die. It's really that simple. You can try to force them out with this and then go into this. And since Link Joker don't have recycling PG, so you can keep track of the number. So that's also really good. But that's usually the most to the extent that we're using this. 2 of this could actually be, 1 could be an Ultima, if you really want to play it, and 1 could be like Breeze or something. I don't really know what you'd play. Maybe another G-Guard?
Yeah, it's like utility elemental G-Guard. I don't know. There's a few things.
Yeah, it's considering you only really need 2, but I just play 4 because I can.
Might as well.
Yeah. And the final stride is Palace Athena. I think this card is really strong in this deck because it's just a GB8. All your strides flip, and it's really easy to set up. It's also really strong if you're willing to be patient. You can use Earth to set it up by using her to pick up all the cards in your drop zone and then striding her. And usually when you do stuff like that and your opponent's at 5 damage, there's absolutely no way they can guard.
Yeah.
All your attacks being over 100,000 power.
Yeah, 2k for every card soul blasted when you pick up your whole drop zone.
That's like...
That's about it, man.
About 30. It could be up to 30 to 40 for each rear guard. I've had games where some of the rear guards push 100,000 power. It's just a really strong card in general. I think it's definitely worth it. I don't really even know what else you would play in this deck, honestly, because you're only striding Regalias anyway to get the stride break skill.
Yeah.
For G guards, it's really simple. Genesis is iconic G guard. This card's really, really strong. For the most obvious reasons. It's just a free 5k shield, and even better than free, it picks up 3 cards and you drop some, puts them in your soul. You obviously have the ideal targets like Genel and Jotun and Achilles. So those are always going to be there. And in the same vein, we have the new G Guard, Ultimate Regalia of Affection Air. So her skill is, when you guard with her, you put 1 card of each grade in your drop zone in your soul. If you put 2 cards, she gets 5k. And if you put 4 cards, she gets 10k. So she's a potential 30k shield by herself. and she can put back 4 cards. So if you noticed from what I just showed you, this is a grade 2, this is a grade 1, and this is a grade 0. So all you really, if you have another grade 3,
face emoji.
so this is definitely going to be optimal a lot of the time, but sometimes you don't. Sometimes you just have multiple Gennels or Achilles in your op zone, and you'd rather use this. So you really just have the split option. And the final G guard is Lure. You really just use her to prevent deck out. Usually this card's going to be better for the... if you're going for raw shield value, you usually want to do this just because it's free soul. But she can be really important because, you know, decking out is always an issue in a Genesis deck. And you don't want that to happen, so you really just need that safeguard against that. And it's a big shield to boot, so there's really nothing wrong with playing it. Any other G-Guard you could play, honestly, is just an inferior version of this card that in Genesis, so I just don't really see a reason to play any other G-Guard, considering these just do everything you need them to do. G-Guarding is really strong in this deck. One thing that this deck really excels at is going first, because as long as with the draw power, as long as you see a heal, you can G-Guard into your Minerva, and that just catches people off guard a lot, because most of the time their first stride is really inoptimal. So when you G-Guard into Minerva, you pretty much just kill your opponent outright.
I mean, you're going straight into like, you know, your biggest game plan.
Yeah, right from the get-go. Unlike other decks that usually use their first stride as some kind of setup, or just isn't very strong at all.
Yeah, like even if they do G-Guard, usually this just makes it better setup. But there's literally no limitations for that to be at just completely full power with a G-Guard.
No, this card, with just one G-Guard, you can just completely nut all over your opponent. And it's just incredibly strong going for 6 attacks on that whenever your rear guard columns can be up to 26 to 31, and she's going to be pretty much 41 to 50k. And then on top of that, you're drawing cards for free. So even if this turn doesn't win you the game, you're gonna have 15 cards in hand. It's really strong, and I really like this deck. One thing that it really suffers with is Link Joker for sure, and it's a hard matchup, but it can be winnable with as long as you know how to use these cards. And for the most part, you know, playing stuff with control, like anything that can interfere with your front row, like Narukami or Kagero, it's really just a matter of, you know, having equilibrium between your columns to make sure that they can't fuck with you too much. And against anything that just doesn't have any type of control, like usually this deck mops all over them unless they get an even better start than you do. Like Luard can get levels of card advantage that this deck can, which can be worrying, but you just have to be able to...
You have so much hand power. Yeah. Like, you have so much hand power, so much aggro. Like, this is like such a total Dark Horse deck. Like, it literally came out of nowhere and is like literally one of the best decks right now. We've had so much success with this list testing, like it's crazy.
It's definitely been doing extremely well, and
yeah,
it's definitely my favorite deck of the format. It's really fun to play, and it's just so strong. Honestly, though, if anything, this is the most powerful card in the deck. Without this card, this deck just doesn't work. This deck is entirely focused on making this card work, and you really, most games you will go only striding this card because she is just that damn powerful.
Yeah, they just made the support that good, like just prop up this card completely. But I mean, yeah, that's what it is. It's a really good deck. You cannot sleep on this deck. You cannot underestimate this deck. It will tear you apart out of nowhere. It'll destroy you. This deck is so strong. And I feel like a lot of people really just don't know that right now. Like, we saw the support was good, we saw like the deck was good, it got like a top or two in Japan, but this deck is really insane. Like, in the hands of someone who really knows how to pilot it and like think of their entire game plan, this shit's crazy. Anyway, thank you guys for watching. It's been the Regalia Minerva deck profile. If you want to go step on some people and Dark Horse your way through some locals, pick up this shit. Thanks.